Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Alistair, welcome to the show. 8 feet to my right is the amazing Marguerite.
Oh shoot, I forgot to unmute myself. Hi!
Who
You were real quick off the draw with that. I was still thinking about the bread, sorry.
who is running the chat for us tonight, along with our amazing moderators. Hello folks, how are you doing? Welcome, everyone. I'm acutely aware, as always, there are people in here from every previous version of my life. There are people from the Isle of Man, there are people from York, there are people from America, there are, I think, people from Nottingham, and there are people from the Magnus Archives and from Pseudopod, and some entirely new folks. Regardless of why you're here, we're delighted you are here. And just in case any of you are new, I thought I'd walk you through how we normally do things. This is a 3-part show. We open with an opening monologue, which I'll get to in a moment, which is basically trailers and adverts. It's a means for you to get comfortable, get situated, get hydrated, get a snack, make sure your pets are fed, all that good stuff. Then we'll go on to a brief discussion of how things have been in the week, and then it will be stave 2 of A Christmas Carol by little-known, seldom-regarded author Charles Dickens, and then shenanigans. Before all of that, though, a special thanks to the amazing Alex Jack Duffy for Office Shenanigans with Peter Lucas, this week's fan art. Now then.
Oh, hold on. And we've just had a lovely, lovely raid from our favorite calligrapher.
Hey, calligrapher.
And I love that we refer to their collective group of people as shit posters.
Isn't that amazing?
That makes me happy.
Yes.
That tickles me. So welcome to the raid. Thanks so much for joining us.
Welcome. You are also just in time for unexpected bonus seasonal Lego.
Oh, we're busting out the Lego. I really should take some pictures of it.
There will be some pictures of it. This is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens with actual Tiny Tim minifigure, actual Ebenezer Scrooge minifigure, some guy who's probably Bob. And for reasons none of us have ever been able to figure out, a drawer in the book.
The people don't even fit in.
But note also the lamp and the tiny tree and the lamppost, presumably to Narnia. And it's all going sideways.
Falling trees, yeah.
The snow and such, and yeah, festive innit. Also, before we go any further, those...
Kato's right. That's where you store the meaning of Christmas.
Oh, of course. It was in the book all along. Before we go any further, of course, there is time for the Chungus update. A Chungoid, a loaf, has been produced and is cooling as we speak. For those of you who are new and who are wondering everything, Chungus is our sourdough starter.
Chungus has a bio page now.
Chungus has a landing page on my website now with his measurements on it.
Which isn't creepy.
This is Chungus. See, he's doing great. And this is the incredible cap that Wendy produced for him. See what?
Oh, they can't see it when you stretch it up all the way down. Oh, now you made Chungus naked. Don't do that.
How's that? Is that better?
Oh, that's better.
Cool,
Okay.
cool.
That's
See, he's fine.
Yes, the chat suddenly became not safe for work. Absolutely. Wendy taught herself how to make tassels for that hat.
Well, that's because Wendy is an actual, sorceress with this stuff. It's amazing.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Chungus is doing fine. Chungus was fed today because, of course, I've made a Chungoid, a loaf of bread, which is currently cooling, which, if it's cool enough to handle, I can bring it after the break.
And there may be toast later.
There will definitely be toast later. That's like our stream snack is. The stream is over, let us have a piece of toast.
Indeed.
Right. Shall we do an opening monologue real quick? Or do you want to tell people about how your week has been? Which is weird.
It's been a really strange week. We kind of took a day off because we kind of had to. Because Marguerite wasn't feeling too good. And I was very tired. So we took a day off. And we're having exactly the week we always have, just delayed by a day. Because today suddenly I was like, oh, I haven't done anything, I haven't been productive. Which normally doesn't hit till Wednesday. And I have done stuff today. I put away 2 of the Full Lid Pluses, which still need to be done for the year. The Full Lid Plus is the paid supplement to the Full Lid, my pop culture newsletter, which is in the middle of a little bit of my multiple award nominated pop culture newsletter. That would be British Fantasy Award and Hugo, technically. Technically nothing.
Not Hugo. You're a Hugo finalist.
Sorry, I'm a Hugo finalist.
Full Lid is a BFA finalist.
Yes, there we are.
One thing at a time. Until next texture, and hopefully you can be other things. Wouldn't that be glorious?
Yeah, we'll come back to that about, categories and stuff.
About February and March.
Okay. But yeah, that's gone on. I have embraced my new horrifying addiction to 911, which is a series about emergency responders working in what they're told is LA, but which is in fact hell. I mean, we could and might yet just kind of jump the rails onto a detailed discussion of this, but everything I'm about to tell you happens in one episode of this show. A runaway sports car is stopped by being driven into a fire truck. A kidnapped baby is retrieved, as is the mother who's badly wounded by the pregnancy. And there's a drug overdose. There's a diverticulitis incident, and a gigantic tsunami destroys Santa Monica Pier. This thing is 42 minutes long. It's like an emergency responder show written on fast forward. It is, by pretty much all weights and measures, very, very awful, and I can't stop watching it. It's really good, and yet not. So that's happened.
We refer to this as the $5 in chocolate.
Yes.
The thing that is at cinemas, and cinemas were a place we were still going, I would say, have fun, honey, and hand him £5 to buy a chocolate bar so that he can go do that all by himself so I don't have to.
Yes. The show is called 911. It has a spin-off called 911 Lone Star, which stars Rob Lowe as a veteran firefighter who's really into skincare.
That's totally cool.
That's actually part of the show. And it's set in Austin, although I am reliably informed that absolutely none of it is filmed there.
Yeah, that's almost redundant, Kato. Texas, but hell. I've been to Austin. Austin is lovely. I've been through Dallas. I don't need to go back.
Yeah. Austin is the only place I've ever been where it got so hot I was watching insects die of heat mid-flight.
Thanks for joining us, Peggy Corn. Have a good time.
Thanks, Peggy Corn. Have a good one. So yeah, all of that happened, and we continue chopping through the end of the year to-do list, and I'm playing a lot of Katamari Damacy. That's about it. Let's do an opening monologue. I am delighted to report that this week's opening monologue is the RPS Advent Calendar, December 8th, the best spin-off game ever made by frequent visitors to this parish, Mr. Nathan Crowley. Grab a seat, get comfortable, time the corpses.
Are we a parish? Is that what we're calling our, geographical area? I thought we were a tower.
I think let's go with tower.
Let's not go with parish.
Yeah. You're just about to open this door on the advent calendar when a man with a torso like a butcher's nightmare bursts through it from the other side, revving a chainsaw larger than you are. He gurns before looking wistfully at a photo of a dead family member. What game can this vast murderer possibly be from? It's Gears Tactics! Note, there's been a growing trend towards the release of good turn-based tactics games in recent years, but 2020 was actually a bit of a banquet. XCOM, Chimera Squad, Snake Cops burst hissing into our lives, while Phoenix Point's Trouble Crabs had a good scuttle over the subgenre's basic tenets to boot. But to me, the standout entry into the genre was Gears Tactics, and it came completely out of left field. The Gears of War franchise is the epitome of a lovable brute. The whole thing has this charming air of wistful giga masculinity. It's desperately searching for pathos and nuance in a ball pool full of diesel-drenched iron bollocks and roaring the whole time. Roaring emotionally. And such, it was interesting to see its identity lifted from the chugging exoskeleton of an FPS and fitted into the altogether sleeker carapace of a turn-based strategy game. The result wasn't a massive deviation from what's understood to be the set formula for these sorts of affairs, but where it did differentiate itself, it excelled. Gears Tactics is fast-paced, compulsive, and utterly stripped down to the business of fight, fight, fight. There are but the barest rags of cutscene and squad-equipping segment to shroud its sack of haggis's physique, and it somehow manages to inject adrenaline and bloodlust into a game format where the enemy only moves when you permit them to, by pressing a button to say that you are ready. Atmosphere, indeed, is where it excels. The game does a cracking job of making you feel perpetually on the edge of being completely buggered, while rarely dragging you all the way through the fire into defeat. Success always feels earned, and never assured. It also makes some smart decisions about how to pour gear setting into the squad 'em up mould, from the overwhelming hordes of brick-faced bastards you're up against to the risk-rewarding thrill of chainsaw charges. Having had the rest of the year since its April debut to play it, it has faded a little in my heart mind. The between missions loadout UI, annoyingly unhelpful at the time, began to stand out like a sore thumb in an otherwise brilliant piece of game design, while non-plot mission generation turned out to have just been varied enough to prove enchanting during the review period, only to begin feeling samey soon afterwards. However, a quality of life update released last week sounds as if it may have fixed at least the first of these issues, which means now might well be the perfect time to jump in, if you didn't earlier in the year. I think the game needs at least one expansion's worth of padding to truly stand the test of time with regard to replayability, but as I said back in April, it's hard to criticise it for that, given just how much fun it is on the first run-through. So there you go, Gears of War. Tonight's gender, giga masculinity.
Or sacks of haggis.
Sacks of haggis physique. Just words dance for him. It's genuinely amazing what Nate is capable of. It truly is. His eyes are sparkly.
Exactly. That is a deep-cut MC Frontalot reference for all you youngins in the chat.
Okay. Shall we Christmas some...
On that note, do we need to give a recap?
I'm going to work off the assumption we do,
okay.
Because every time is someone's first time, even for a book that's over 100. Here is what you need to know. Ebenezer Scrooge is an absolute bastard. He's a terrible boss, he's miserable, he's grumpy, and he has defied all attempts to celebrate Christmas with good cheer and sent his intrepid clerk, a man who showed up, we established last week, wearing a duvet because he does not have a coat, home very reluctantly for Christmas. Yeah, he's a Tory. He's such a fucking Tory. Content warning swears. At home, he is visited by the ghost of his former business partner, Jacob Marley. A man former only because he is a former man. Jacob died some time ago, and he has shown up to tell Scrooge that Scrooge has one final chance to mend his horrendously broken ways. To assist in this mendage, he will be visited by 3 spirits.
Is mendage a word?
It is now.
Okay.
Who will instruct him in what he needs to do. Scrooge, because he's a Tory, goes, tonight's not good for me. And Marley's
Can we just have one big Zoom call and get it all done?
Yeah, could we just get it all done at once? And Marley's just like, see, do you want to go to hell? Because this is how you go to hell. We may be paraphrasing. It is extremely spooky. It's really atmospheric, and the big thing which we found out last week is it's much funnier in prose than I ever remember it being. So, without
failed life partner.
So, without further ado, tonight we have Stave 2 of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, a man I discovered a factoid about today. I am buzzing to tell you, and I will tell you at the end of this. Stave 2 is called the first of the 3 spirits. So get comfy, because Scrooge isn't. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavouring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of a neighbouring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour, and to his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, and then stopped. 12. It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. The clock clearly must have been wrong. An icicle must have got into the works. 12? He touched the spring of his repeater to correct this most preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12, and stopped. Why, it isn't possible, said Scrooge, that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun, and this is 12 at noon. The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything, and could see very little even after that. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy and extremely cold, and that there was no noise of people running to and fro and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if night had beaten off bright day and taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after sight of this first of exchange pay to Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, or his order, and so forth, would have become a mere United States security if there were no dates to count by. Scrooge went to bed again, and thought, and thought, and thought, and thought it over and over and over, and he could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavoured not to think, the more he thought. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly. Every time he resolved within himself, after mature inquiry, that it was all a dream, his mind flew back again, like a strong spring released to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked all through. Was it a dream or not? Just to break script for a moment, that may be the earliest example of "is it though" in English literature.
Also, can I just say, Stave 2, Too Christmas Eve, Too Carol?
Yes. Stave 3, Tokyo Drift. Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3/4 more, when he remembered on a sudden that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved he would lie awake until the hour was past, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length, though, it broke upon his listening ear. "Ding-dong, 1/4 past," said Scrooge, counting. "Ding-dong, 1/2 past," said Scrooge. "Ding-dong, 1/4 to it," said Scrooge. "Ding-dong." "The hour itself," said Scrooge triumphantly, "and nothing else." He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. They were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, starting up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am to you now, and I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, and yet so not like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view, and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were, like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though, when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality, for as its belt sparkled and glittered now in one part, now in another, what was light one instant at another time was dark, so the figure itself fluctuated, being now a thing with one arm, now one leg, now with 20, now a pair of legs with no head, now a head with no body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. And in the very wonder of this it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. "Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?" asked Scrooge. "I am." The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if instead of being so close beside him, it were at a distance. "Who and what are you?" Scrooge demanded. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish stature. "No, your past." Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered. "What," exclaimed the ghost, "would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? Is it not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap, and forced me through whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow?" Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend or any knowledge of having wilfully bonneted the spirit at any period of his life. He then made bold to inquire what business brought him there. "Your welfare," said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would perhaps have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately, "Your reclamation, then. Take heed." It put out its strong hand as it spoke, and clasped him gently by the arm. "Rise, and walk with me." It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that bed was warm and the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made toward the window, clasped his robe in supplication. "I am a mortal," Scrooge remonstrated, "and liable to fall." "Bear but a touch of my hand there," said the spirit, laying it upon his heart, "and you shall be upheld. Upheld in more than this." As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road, with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished, not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, and it was a clear, cold winter day, with snow upon the ground. "Good heaven!" said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. "I was bred in this place." "I was a boy here." Giggity. The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light and instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. He was conscious of 1,000 odours floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts, and hopes, and joys, and cares, long forgotten. "Your lip is trembling," said the ghost. "And what is that upon your cheek?" Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. "You recollect the way?" inquired the spirit. "Remember it?" cried Scrooge with fervour. "I could walk it blindfold." "Strange to have forgotten it for so many years," observed the ghost. "Let us go on." They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate, post, tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance with its bridge, and its church, and its winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts, driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits, and shouted to each other, until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. "These are but shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost. "They have no consciousness of us." The jocund travellers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them, every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten, his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas. What good had it ever done him? The school is not quite deserted, said the ghost. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still. Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane, and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick, with a little weathercock-cemented cupola on the roof and a bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used, their walls damp and mossy, windows broken, gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach-houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more attentive of its ancient estate within, for, entering the dreary hall and glancing upon the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold, and vast. There was an earthy savour in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight, and not too much to eat. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these the lonely boy was reading, near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the panelling, not a drip from the half-thawed water-spout in the dull yard behind, not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar, nor the idle swinging of an empty storehouse door, no, not a clicking in the fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence, and gave a freer passage to his tears. The spirit touched him on the arm and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at, stood outside the window, with an axe stuck in his belt, and leading by the bridle an ass laden with wood. "Why, it's Ali Baba!" Scrooge exclaimed in ecstasy. "It's dear old honest Ali Baba. Yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come, for the first time, just like that. Poor boy, and Valentine," said Scrooge, "and his wild brother Orson, there they go, and what's his name, who was put down in his drawers asleep at the gate of Damascus. Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the genie. There he is upon his head. Serve him right. I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess?" To hear Scrooge expending all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects in a most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened and excited face, would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city. Indeed. "There's the parrot!" cried Scrooge. "Green body, yellow tail, thing like a lettuce growing out the top of his head. There he is! Poor Robin Crusoe, he called him, when he came home again after sailing round the island. Poor Robin Crusoe, where have you been, Robin Crusoe?" The man thought he was dreaming. He wasn't. It was the parrot, you know. There goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. Woohoo! And then, with a rapidity of transition very foreign to his usual character, he said in pity to his former self, "Poor boy," and cried again. "I wish," Scrooge muttered, putting his hands in his pockets, and looking about him, drying his eyes with his cuff. "It's too late now." "What is the matter?" asked the spirit. "Nothing," said Scrooge. "Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all." Just dropping into character for a moment. "See? Ha!" The ghost... "God rest ye very gentlemen, may nothing you dismay."
If you do that every stream.
"Well, now I have to." The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so, "Let us see another Christmas." Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and dirtier. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked. Fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked lathes were shown instead. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, and that there he was, alone again. when all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, and putting her arms about his neck and kissing him, addressed him and said, "Dear, dear brother!" "I have come to bring you home, dear brother," said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. "To bring you home, home, home!" "Home, little fan," returned the boy. "Yes," said the child, brimful of glee. "Home for good and all. Home for ever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be. Home is like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said yes you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you, and you're to be a man," said the child, opening her eyes, "and are never to come back here, but first we're to be together all the Christmas long, and have the merriest time in all the world." "You are quite a woman, little fan," exclaimed the boy. She clapped her hands and laughed, and tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again, and stood on tiptoe. Then she began to drag him in her childish eagerness towards the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her. A terrible voice in the hall cried, "Bring down Master Scrooge's box there!" And in the hall appeared the schoolmaster himself, who glared on Master Scrooge with a ferocious condescension, and threw him into a dreadful state of mind by shaking hands with him. He then conveyed him and his sister into the veriest old well of a shivering best parlour that ever was seen, where the maps upon the wall and the celestial and terrestrial globes in the windows were waxy with gold. Here he produced a decanter of curiously light wine and a block of curiously heavy cake, and administered instalments of these dainties to the young people, at the same time sending out a meagre servant to offer a glass of something to the post-boy, who answered that he thanked the gentleman, but if it was the same tap as he had tasted before, he'd rather not. Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied on the top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster good-bye right willingly, and getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoar frost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray. "Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered," said the ghost. "She had a large heart." "So she had," cried Scrooge. "You're right, I won't gainsay it, Spirit, God forbid." "She died a woman," said the ghost, "and had, as I think, children." "One child," Scrooge returned. "True," said the ghost. "Your nephew?" Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind, and answered briefly, "Yes." Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time again. But it was evening, and the streets were lighted up. And I have to hit the take a break warning.
Already?
Yes. How we doing, folks? We good?
I'm guessing that. Yeah, I was like, what does "she died a woman" mean? Oh, what a horrible description. Yeah.
Yeah.
This part is sad. I reread it, right, earlier today when I was helping prep this for you, and I kind of glossed over this section, but hearing it read about it's his little sister excited that she gets to bring the neglected older brother home from school, it's a little more of a tug on the heartstrings.
Oh, he's very clearly an abuse survivor, and he's an abuse survivor of one of the worst sorts. In that,
of the Victorian class system.
Yeah, my guess is he was a spare. So they went, okay, we're going to park you in boarding school. Try not to die.
Exactly. Do you want to continue on? I paused here because it's the beginning of the next memory, which is a little bit longer. So I wanted to give you a chance to get a cup of tea if you need.
Yeah, I'm going to refresh my tea if that's all right.
That sounds good. Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick stretch break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and then just as a reminder, there's always going to be a countdown for when we're going to come back. So if you don't see the countdown, you've got at least 60 seconds to get a beverage. And if you do see the countdown, you know when we'll be back. So it will be just a couple minutes. And this is a great time to refresh your drinks or attend to medications or snacks. And we'll see you soon.
That is a very, very good selection of cats. Good job, stream.
I love kitty photos. More kitty photos for.
Yes, it is supposed to sound like it's sliding in and out of key.
What was the direction you gave Ryan for this?
I think it was a klezmer band rolling downhill.
No, it was something like Dickens, but dirty Dickens.
Yes.
And we wound up with very, very, very...
Dickens, but rub some funk on it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of...
Yeah, and we're back.
The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. "Know it?" said Scrooge. "I was apprenticed here." They went in. The sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a huge desk that if he had been 2 inches taller he must have knocked his head against the ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement, "Oh, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart! It's Fezziwig alive again!" Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, "Ah! Ebenezer! Dick!" Scrooge's form... You know I did! You know I did!
You may proceed.
Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow apprentice. "Dick Wilkins, to be sure," said Scrooge to the ghost. "Bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick. Dear, dear." "Now then, my boys," said Fezziwig, "no more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up," cried old Fezziwig, with a sharp clap of his hands, "before a man can say Jack Robinson." You would not believe how these two fellows went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters. 1, 2, 3, had them up in their places. 4, 5, 6, barred and pinned. 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like wet racehorses. "Ah!" cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hi-ho, Dick! Cheer up, Ebenezer!" Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off, as if it were dismissed from public life for evermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomachaches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. In came the boy from over the way, who was suspected of not having board enough from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from next door but one, who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came anyhow, everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couple starting off again as soon as they got there, all top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" and the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose. But, scorning rest upon his reappearance, he instantly began again, although there were no dancers yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home exhausted on a shutter, and he were a brand new man, resolved to beat him out of sight or perish. Significant tea break, and yes, particular friend is a phrase which does seem coded, isn't it?
Because there aren't any commas in this section. It's just one big, one gigantic sentence.
There were more dances, and there were forfeits, and more dances, and there was cake, and there was negus, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast, and the boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog, mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told it him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig, top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them, 3 or 4 and 20 pairs of partners, people who were not to be trifled with, people who would dance and had no notion of walking. What a curious threat. But if they had been twice as many, 4 times as many, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term, and if that's not high praise, tell me higher and I will use it. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would have become of them next, and when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, both hands to your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again to your place, Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs and came upon his feet again without a stagger. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired by the 2 prentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene and with his former self. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick were turned from them, that he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burnt very clear. "A small matter," said the ghost, "to make these silly folks so full of gratitude." "Small," echoed Scrooge. The spirit signed to him to listen to the 2 apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig. And when he had done so, said, "Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3, 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self. "It isn't that, spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure, a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What is the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think." The ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No. I should like to be able to say a word or 2 to my clerk just now, that's all." His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit, quickly. This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a morning dress, in whose eyes there were tears which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly. "To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I would have no just cause to grieve." "What idol has displaced you?" he rejoined. "A golden one." "This is the even-handed dealing of the world," he said. "There is nothing on it which is so hard as poverty. There is nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth." "You fear the world too much," she answered gently. "All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not?" "What then?" he retorted. "Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you." She shook her head. "Am I?" "Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until in good season we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man." "I was a boy." "Your own feeling tells you that you are not what you are," she returned. "I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in art is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and I can release you." "Have I ever sought release?" "In words, no, never." "In what then?" "In a changed nature, altered spirit, another atmosphere of life, another hope as its great end. In everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight, if this had never been between us," said the girl, looking mildly but with steadiness upon him. "Tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now?" "No." He seemed to yield to the justice of this supposition in spite of himself, but he said with a struggle, "You think not?" "I would gladly think otherwise if I could," she answered. "Heaven knows. When I have learned a truth like this, I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl, you who in your very confidence with her weigh everything by gain, or choosing her, if for a moment you were false enough to your one guiding principle to do so? Do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow?" "I do. I release you, with a full heart for the love of him you once were." He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. "You may. The memory of what is past half makes me hope you will have pain in this. A very, very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it gladly, as an unprofitable dream from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen." She left him. They parted. "Spirit," said Scrooge, "show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me?" "One shadow more," exclaimed the ghost. "No more!" cried Scrooge. "No more! I don't wish to see it. Show me no more." But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. And it was tea. Only slightly, Grandpa Trexel. They were in another scene and place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like that last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count. And unlike the celebrated herd in the poem, they were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sports, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly. What would I not have given to be one of them, though I never could have been so rude? No. No, I wouldn't for the wealth of all the world have crushed that braided hair and torn it down, and for the precious little shoe I wouldn't have plucked it off. God bless my soul, to save my life as to measuring her waist in sport, as they did. Bold young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown round it for a punishment, and never come straight again. And yet, I should have dearly liked, I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her that she might have opened them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes and never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair, an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond price. In short, I should have liked, I do confess, to have had the lightest license of a child, and yet to have been man enough to know its value. But now a knocking at the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she, with laughing face and plundered dress, was borne towards it the centre of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the shouting and the struggling and the onslaught that was made on that defenceless porter, the scaling him with chairs for ladders to dive into his pockets, despoil him of brown paper parcels, hold on tight by his cravat, hug him round his neck, pommel his back, and kick his legs in irrepressible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received. The terrible announcement that the baby had been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into his mouth, and was more than suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey glued on a wooden platter. The immense relief of finding this a false alarm, the joy, the gratitude, the ecstasy. They are all indescribable alike. It is enough that by degrees the children and their emotions got out of the parlour, and by one stair at a time up to the top of the house, where they went to bed, and so subsided.
Wait, he thinks the children were quiet after they went to bed?
I'm very curious as we're just glossing over what is the functional assault of this hapless retail services worker.
I think it's supposed to actually be the dad just carrying all these packages.
Okay.
Let's hope so. Because otherwise, he better tip well. That's all I can say.
It's just...
Dude, that was like the worst Uber delivery ever.
1 star. I'm etching it.
Screw you, Scrooge.
And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful and as full of promise, might have called him father, and been a springtime in the haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed. "Belle," said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, "I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon." "Who was it?" "Guess." "How can I? I don't know," she added in the same breath, laughing as he loved. "Mr. Scrooge." "Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and as it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside, I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat, alone. Quite alone in the world, I do believe." "Spirit," said Scrooge in a broken voice, "remove me from this place." "I told you these were shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost, "that they are what they are. Do not blame me." "Remove me?" Scrooge exclaimed. "I cannot bear it." He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. "Leave me! Take me back! Haunt me no longer!" In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle, in which the ghost, with no visible resistance on its own part, was undisturbed by any effort of its adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connecting that with its influence over him, he seized the extinguisher cap, and by all of a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form, but though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light, which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted, overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze, in which his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed, before he sank into a heavy, heavy sleep.
So he tried to beat up the ghost?
I can't help but feel this is one of the great unheralded burns of England.
It's the ghost of Christmas Past with the folding chair! Yeah, exactly, right?
This is one of the great unheralded burns of English literature. In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle, in which the ghost with no visible resistance on its own part was just was disturbed by any effort of its adversary. I mean, we're basically talking holding the old man at arm's length here. Why do you keep hitting yourself? Why do you keep hitting yourself?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. It's just Scrooge is not comporting himself well in the fisticuffs.
Live this fall on CBS, Charles Dickens, Ghost Puncher.
Oh, God. Is that not... That's gotta be like one of those ghost hunting TV show Christmas specials, right? It has to be. It's what's the one with Nick Frost that you're watching right now?
Oh, Truth Seekers.
Truth Seekers is going to have a Dickens Christmas episode.
It must do. I'm still hung up on Ghost Punchers. We and our elite team tracked down ghosts and beat the piss out of them.
Wasn't that a supernatural thing?
I seem to remember it's established after a while that I think
it was Ghost Chasers.
Yeah, because the Ghost Chasers are the web show on Supernatural.
Okay.
And there's the episode where the boys show up and you can actually see the car pull up with AC/DC playing in the background.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course you can, and then they just drive off like. Of course, there was also an episode of Supernatural called Pro Wrestling. Okay, I almost asked, is there an episode of Supernatural? Is there anything about which there was not an episode of Supernatural? And then I thought of like 3 answers, all of which involve Dean and Castiel, and then I got sad again. So I think we'll just move swiftly on.
There has to be a Dickensian wrestling special. There does. Dear Lord, it's Edwin Drood. He's holding Tiny Tim. Good grief, sir.
There's a show called Paranormal Cops, and they use
unseemly
evidence tapes.
Yes.
Oh, you've seen this. Oh, Chad, the look he just gave me. Oh, you sweet summer child.
I've got one speed, David, and it's that'll do.
I know, Jax. We should, someday... I need to find a video editor who will comb through all these things and do, a compilation of all my pain size.
See, the pain size aren't what I live for. What I live for is the very, very occasional moments where I could just completely corpse her.
I haven't spit a drink yet, but that's fortunate. Oh, no.
Challenge accepted.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, no, I've seen Paranormal Cops. It's...
Of course you have.
Shitpost, what have you found?
Oh, no, what have you found? Okay, I'm going to go check my DMs. Hang on.
Okay. Pip versus David Copperfield. Oh, I would love that.
I'm refreshing my DMs on Twitter, where is it? Where is it? I mean, of course Alistair's seen it. Right, Wendy? Right? Hold on a second. What? Hold on.
I'm at as much of a loss as the rest of you, so this is exciting for all of us.
It's a poster. Oh no, it's a script. Oh, thank you so much for this. I do believe you may have given us the opening monologue for a future episode. I'm just going to read you the title, which is WWE A Christmas Carol. Oh yeah, that's happening.
Hell yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's going to be fabulous.
Oh.
And on that note... Just push the button.
Oh, okay.
Don't push the buttons.
Okay.
Well, you can.
Okay, so shenanigans, la shenanigans. We have a pair of salty sea. I'll go out and come back in. We have a pair of.
No. You're gonna go out and come back in. Come on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show.
I can't believe he actually did that.
Commit to the bit. We have a pair of sea shanty exchanges between Elias and Peter by the magnificent Andrew Jack. Andrew, you should know, is a New Zealand-based voiceover artist and is a very, very good friend of ours. He is just an unbelievably good human being in every important way. He's a really nice guy. So we have Elias. Oh, what shall we do with the drunken sailor? Peter, leave him floating in a life raft on an endless ocean. Alone. Elias, damn it, Peter, we've talked about this. And Elias, alright? Let's try an easy one. Who lives in a pineapple under the seas? The end of hope. Damn it, Peter!
See, now I'm tempted to go looking for actual sea shanties for you, but the problem is if I find them, you will sing them.
Yeah, I will.
We'll just leave it at that.
I like to think I delivered that in the same tone of voice as, just once you could walk past a fez. Never going to happen.
Do we have a fez?
Yeah, we do.
I think we used to have a fez.
We have a magical GMing fez.
No, I think it's just a plain fez. Please don't make me go digging for a fez.
I won't make you go digging for a fez. I feel like we've got some more shenanigan room. Do you want to...
We do, but I don't have anything prepped. I guess we could always impose upon the chat for any sea shanty related shenanigans.
Tell you what, chat. We got to, let's go like
Let me check my notes.
The
thing you said we should post is going to have to be like a very special all by itself thing because it's really long. It's not all that long unless you want to read it.
Bring it on. Let's do this.
Okay, alright, fine. We're going to do it. Alright. Improvise. Here we go. I'm going to put a link in the chat. You're going to have to pull it up, okay?
I just bopped myself in the nose with my own water.
Did you really?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Alright, fine. Alright, we're improvising an additional shenanigan here, folks. This is shenanigan chaos.
Just once, Peter, you could walk past a boat. Never going to happen.
Keep seeing Lever, Johnny Lever. Oh, I'll put that on the list. Okay, the corpse counter is going to be astronomical. I'm just warning you now.
Coming in hot. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Glorious.
All right.
Hey,
okay.
Let me drop a marker for this because I'm definitely going to clip this bad boy.
Oh, Seamus is in this. My brother from another Celt. WWE: A Christmas Carol by John Kindleman. Let us gather around the flaming 6-foot, very breakable table and enjoy a little holiday cheer. That's right, it's one of the long-lost WWE Christmas specials. Enough of Charlie Brown and Rudolph. It's about time that we aired these long-lost specials, and here is the first of the joyous examples. A Christmas Carol. Scene 1. The office of McMahon and McMahon. It was the Christmas season and the rich miser Vince McMahon was hard working away at WWE headquarters, writing weird plots, figuring out how he could have the Nexus draw out for an entire year. Fake laugh. Real pain. I remember the Nexus. His loyal worker, John Cena, sat in the office adjoining to his room, writing new ways that he could rant about loving his company in the WWE universe. But it being Christmas Eve, he was hoping he wouldn't have to work all night long, and could run home and spend some time with Tiny Ray, the other lovable character of the WWE that had never has to turn heel. The sign out front still read McMahon and McMahon, even though Linda had stayed away from the company for a while, in hopes of getting elected to office. But Vince felt no need to change the sign. He liked his name up there twice. Vince begrudgingly dismissed John, but told him he had to make an extra 25 appearances in 4 more movies, since he was letting him have Christmas off.
God, no.
John threw on his John Cena holiday gear, soon to be available at WWEshop.com, and ran out the door wishing Mr. McMahon a Merry Christmas. Scene 2. Visited by old ghosts. Later that night, Vince was visited by the ghost of his one-time rival, Ted Turner. Vince screamed, "Ted, you died!" "No, Vince, I am the ghost of WCW, and I am here to warn you. You need to go back to compelling television for wrestling. Remember the good old days when you and I would feud as to who would be a better wrestling entertainment show? You need that back. But there was competition, and I thrive in that. My goal was to take you over, and then I won, and then, well, we've been trying new things, and the PG thing is okay, and just there's no competition." "What about TNA, Vince?" asked Ted. There was a long pause. Both men burst into laughter. I'm sorry. I tried saying it with a straight face. Oh, I needed that. Anyway, you know the deal, right? 3 ghosts, yada yada, learn a lesson. Ted wiped a tear of laughter from his face. Vince responded, okay, don't do that to me. I'm not as young as I was. He curled up in his giant bed, stuffed with money, and waited for the bell to toll 1 and to be visited by the first ghost. Oh, this is where it's going to get crunchy.
Okay, that's it. I'm scanning ahead because I want to pick a voice.
The bell tolls 1. Vince awakes. Spirit, oh yeah. Dig it. Ghost of Christmas Past coming at ya. Oh, God. You're not here to take me to the 80s, are you? No, Vince, I'm here to take you when you were making a lot of money, had killer ratings, and didn't have some blonde guy in a boa bossing you around. We're going to the 90s. Time of you getting your butt kicked and the WWE Attitude Era running rampant. Well, I'm trying to be more PG lately. Yeah. You seen a PG movie lately? You're working at more of a G level. You see The Losers, about a government black ops group? It was PG, for crying out loud. No one's asking you to drop F-bombs. Oh yeah, but a little hell yeah wouldn't kill you.
And a snake in a box.
And Vince was shot back to his room and put back in his bed, waiting for the next spirit. Scene 4. The Ghost of Christmas Present. Yes, we will be taking Lonely Eyes suggestions. The bell tolls 2. Vince awakens. Spirit? Hello, Vince. I am the Ghost of Christmas Present. Oh, hello, Johnny Nitro, said Vince. No, that's my old name. We killed it because of WCW, said the Ghost. Oh, right, sorry, Johnny Blaze. No, we killed that one because it's the Ghost Rider from Marvel Comics, said the Ghost. So, which one are you now? Morrison, I'm John Morrison. Jesus, I was a tag champ. I was ECW champ. Come on, I've been here like forever. Oh, okay. I mean, what are you here to show me? That you need to give new talent a push. You can't have a glass ceiling anymore, Vince. But Miz is champ. Daniel Bryan is US champ. Ziggler is IC champ. The Nexus are tag champs. Wade Barrett's competing in main events. I'm confused, said Vince. Me! You need to give me a push. Seriously, Sheamus? What the hell, man? You know what? Forget this. Learn a lesson. Don't. Do whatever. I'm going to go do parkour. Parkour? I'll have to have Michael Cole Google that. And the spirit whooshed him back to his room. Scene 5. The Ghost of Christmas Future. The bell tolls 3. Vince calls out, Spirit Squad? The spirit stands there but says nothing. Oh my, you're the spirit I feared the most, the talent that I have yet to hire, probably, but most likely won't. Wait, are you AJ Styles? The spirit doesn't answer. It says Styles on your robe, Vince points out. The spirit covers his robe. You have a big AJ tattooed on your body. It's right there. I can see it. Vince tickles his side. Cut it out! Cut it out! Oh, Vince, I am the talent that will come to you someday. Please. Oh, go find my friend Christopher Daniels. He also wears a cool hood. Oh, so you're here to tell me to pilfer talent from TNA? I mean, I know a lot of great guys have gone there, like, Jeff Jarrett. Stop it! I'm not supposed to talk. I'm just all creepy and stuff. Anyway, get some new talent, get rid of the Nexus, let Cena evolve a bit, and turn Ray evil. He'd make a great heel. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. Vince shakes his hand. Cool, bro, seriously, please make it quick. Ric Flair smells funny. He makes me rub Ben Gay on his shoulders after shows. Just as a quick aside, by the way, AJ Styles is infamous for being a very, very not clever man. He firmly believes the earth is flat. And I will go to my grave angry that the WWE did not do a Shape of the Earth on a pole match a few years ago. It's right there. Scene 6. Christmas Day. Vince woke up on Christmas Day, logged into his Bleacher Report account, and read the latest batch of goodness. He did his usual ritual of marking articles offensive, but paused for a moment on some, listening to the predictions, wants and hopes and dreams of the IWC and the WWE Universe. He then called up his loyal worker, John Cena, and told him he could stop wrestling the Nexus, as they were breaking them up next week, when they were going to reveal that evil Rey Mysterio was the leader and John would feud with him. He then went on to create 10 new tag teams and sent emails to Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, offering them a home. He told Mick Foley he could come back. He told Ric Flair he could stay where he was. He wrote 2 long feuds out for both the IC belt and the US title, including Christian, Ezekiel Jackson and Santino, Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler. He sent 2 lumps of coal with a note saying, "Don't smoke this," to the Hardys. He gave Edge the belt and had Chris Jericho return to go after him, only to be stopped by Shawn Michaels. Stone Cold and The Rock became the general managers of Raw and SmackDown. Jerry Lawler had a buried alive match with Michael Cole, and JR threw on the first lump of dirt to Cole's grave. The Undertaker took on the Easter Bunny at WrestleMania and kept the streak alive, but Easter was cancelled forever after all. And he wished all a Merry Christmas.
And somewhere deep in hell, Roddy Piper laughs at you all.
Exactly.
That was glorious. Oh, okay. I have to actually. Oh, where is he? There he is. Okay. If people want to know what wrestling is like in our household.
Professional wrestling is a fascinating art form. It is.
Yeah, that's my wrestling love in a nutshell.
That's how we roll. It's a fascinating art form. It's basically like circus or like close-up magic, which I used to do, just with far more face kicks. I have friends who've been in the industry for years. A couple of them have been on WWE, actually. And I have the utmost admiration for them and the utmost horror at how the WWE has tainted and manipulated the industry. This could be a thing all by itself. I mean, I could do an hour on this without breaking a sweat, but basically the shortest, easiest to follow version is this. These people risk their lives every single week, and they do so as independent contractors, which means they do not have company healthcare. Which means that when they break something, and it is when, that means they can't make money. Which means they can't work, and if they can't work, they can't make money. And it snowballs in such a way as you learn to eat painkillers to be able to operate, and then you get addicted to them, and then the side effects kick in. The overwhelming majority of my favorite wrestlers are dead. And they're dead because of painkiller addiction and side effects.
And they're dead in their late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
It's horrible. They need to unionize, and Vince McMahon is really
Yes, he really, really is. But, yeah, I mean, to give you an example of just how bad things are, there is a lady who works for them at the moment, who works under the name Zelina Vega, who... in fact, I'll rewind this a little bit. I know this isn't for everybody, so I'm keeping this as short as possible. Especially during the pandemic, an awful lot of their talent have been making a lot of money on Twitch and OnlyFans and various other services like that.
Because they had no other mechanisms. I mean, they can't work, despite Vince McMahon literally working with the state of Florida government to try and get wrestling to be something that can happen live.
And by working, we mean bribing, because they were considered an essential business.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so all the talent was trying to build their own revenue streams with Instagram, and Twitch and all sorts of other stuff.
So while all of this is going on, he's busy holding the company together in the pandemic. Then he notices that his staff are making money on the side. And he basically tells them, you can either shut down your Twitch streams or you can give them to us and we'll give you a cut. And Zelina Vega is particularly notable for about 3 weeks ago, she tweeted, "I support unionization." And literally 10 minutes later, the official account tweeted, "We've come to terms on the release of Zelina Vega, and we wish her all the best in her future endeavors." It's not good. It's not good at all. And my sincere hope is that this, especially with the fact that there are now kind of 2.5 players in the US industry, that this will lead to unionization and proper healthcare. Because, I mean, one of our closest friends is an ex-professional wrestler, and he has days where his knees don't work. And I would like his to be the last generation which has holes in it, you know?
To answer your question, Jax, how do I just have that? So I grew up near Portland, Oregon, which is a huge feeder town for the pro wrestling leagues. And Roddy Piper was the first wrestler I ever saw wrestle, and probably the first Scotsman I ever had a crush on. And when we moved to the UK, he was actually here touring, and I got to meet him, and Alistair took me.
We have this photo. Yeah. We have this photo of him hugging Marguerite, and the grin is splitting her face in two. It's amazing.
Oh, my sisters are so jealous.
Yes. Also, I'm just going to come out and say it, he was still hot.
He's hella hot.
Good grief. There's a couple of people in the chat talking about how pro wrestling sounds really fun, but it also seems really toxic.
Good night, Becky.
Good night, Becky. Two really useful potential entry points to it. There's a very new company called AEW who have been doing a lot of things very right. Some things not right at all, but on balance they're treating the talent far fairer than the WWE ever have. And Impact, which is what TNA, which is repeatedly referenced in there, grew into, is a minuscule promotion at the moment. I think they've got like 30, 40 people, but their writing is top-notch and their talent roster is insanely good. And if you want to see what pro wrestling can do with very little budget and tremendous imagination, it's that. They did a supernatural angle in their women's division, which is genuinely one of the most poignant things I've ever seen. And this literally involved, here is a coffin through which we may enter hell and be attacked by zombie brides, who are very clearly 6 other people from the roster in masks. And yet, it worked. It was great. Anyway, we are way off beam at this point.
Thank you very much for
that. Thank you for that.
Really enjoyable wrestling tangent.
I believe there is actually a far-left heel called the SJW. I know there is a heel called the Liberal, who works very specific territories.
I am scrolling back through the chat right now for other shenanigans. Let's see. Pardon me just a second while I click accept and all that good stuff. Oh, yeah.
What do we got?
So, do you want to read the fan art from tonight?
Yes, I'd love
I
to.
think you've done so before, but
Do I have the button?
I pushed the button, so it should be in the chat.
Hold on. This is exciting. I've got it.
There it is. It's also in the show notes if you need it. Yeah, that is tonight's fan art, which I've just pushed twice, just to make sure everybody knows which one it is.
And we apparently have a bread lick from Zalia as well.
Oh, a bread lick.
Yes.
Great.
Always up for a good bread lick.
I like the bread. Oh, I should go get the bread. I'll be right back.
Okay. This comes from What Doesn't Make Me Stronger Kills Me. And this is the fantastic Alex Jack Duffy. Martin, I don't always understand Elias's texts. This just says box with a question mark, another box with a question mark, another box with a question mark, another box with a question mark, and yet another box with a question mark, then a box with a question mark. What does that mean? It means you don't have emojis on your phone.
Honest.
There's yours.
It's like a family photo. Durr. Okay. That's going to totally be toast tonight.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go put that in the kitchen. You want to read the bread lick?
Yes. My name is Pete. I love the sea. I sing shanties, and I am free. But when I get right back to land, I meet Elias and take his hand. Aw, that's adorable.
I love Zelia's bread licks.
Me too. We also have from Midnight Sing Vogel had a comic for us.
Oh, scroll. Ah, here we are.
We have Elias fast asleep, slamming awake with very beholding looking eyes. With Peter saying, finally you're awake. Do you remember me? Elias looks at him, narrows his eyes. No.
Evilly narrows his eyes, to be fair.
And Peter's just like, I'm your husband. Married 90 years now, not counting the divorces, of course. And the passion between us was unmistakable, unbearable. When you opened your third eye and said my boat sucked ass, well, I fell in love in an instant. You know what? I've suddenly remembered everything. Oh, good. Then you could sign these alimony checks you've been putting off. I've been looking at a shiny new boat, bigger than my current one. It's always boats with you. It's more space for everyone on it. So much space. Compensating? Oh, you know I'm not. Anyhow, congratulations on your recovery, dear. Never been happier to see you. Wish I could say the same. You've missed my beard. I don't need the eye to tell me that. Ah, good Lord. Next you'll be saying I missed your stupid little sailor hat as well. You wound me, Elias. You got me this hat at one of your office parties. I even made an appearance. Oh, whatever. I'll do much worse if you don't leave my office. We're in the hospital. It's a spiritual office, dear. Regardless, I've been looking forward to leaving, but you still won't sign these checks. I don't see how this is my fault, darling. Fine. Give it here. Lovely. That's all I wanted. Get well soon, I suppose. Won't be seeing you. Good riddance. Don't let the mist devour you on your way out. Whoosh. Whoosh. Peter self-yeeting at the end there. Perfect, thank you for that.
I love it.
Yeah, my gender is spiritual office.
Oh, no. What Havenly just said. Okay, Alistair, Marguerite, Chungus, and a Chungus loaf all in matching Santa hats would make an excellent Christmas card. I'm going to write down that.
She's writing things down now.
Because I have Instagram filters. Okay.
And when Marguerite writes things down, things happen.
Nothing escapes my list.
I think we're about done, don't you?
I'm writing.
Okay, she's writing. It's okay. You finished?
Yes, I finished.
How about now?
Okay.
How about now?
I'm done.
Okay. We are back a lot.
Yes.
Between now and next Wednesday.
Because this weekend. Oh God, it's this weekend. Like in 4 days.
Yeah.
Crapola. Is
Rusty Quill Gaming.
That's right.
Which we are on 2 sections of, and I'm sure you've made a note of them, and I have forgotten to look.
They are in the show notes.
So I'm just
scrolled right past them.
vamping like a mofo. Here we are. RQGG this week, between 3:15 and 5 p.m, we will be playing Among Us, during which I will be murdered a mere 1,300 times.
And I think we may cheat, because I think it's just going to be the 2 of us on one account. I'm going to see if I can set us up to simul stream so people can see
just
our
the
screens.
2 of us.
What? Are you hold music boogieing?
Just the 2 of us.
Oh, okay. Even more data.
No, because
there will be a whole bunch of us, including Hannah and Alex, I think. I'm very excited about playing Among Us because there's somebody else who will suck at it as much as I do.
Yeah, it says the lady who successfully murdered the shit out of people like 4 times last time. And I was just like, oh, I'm opening a leaf shoot. Oh, my spleen! My spleen is on my face.
Oh, I'm totally the imposter. Oh, no, you guys.
Will you be playing with watchers or your own team of players? That's a very good question. I have no idea.
Playing with watchers. I don't know. We are not in charge of hosting that particular segment. We're just appearing. So I'm not sure how it's being arranged. You will know as soon as I do. I just know I'm supposed to show up and play. And I'm going to try and have our channel streaming it at the same time. I don't know if that's going to be possible yet. We're still working all that out. And then we're also doing, I think, a 10 to midnight spot. Yeah,
we have it weirdly precisely here at 10:14 to midnight.
I think it's 10:15 and that's a typo.
Okay. Yeah, which is some form of tabletop game.
It's like a tabletop game simulator that has a bunch of different card games, but you're playing that with Johnny, which is going to be hilarious. So.
He's going to take it seriously, though.
Yeah? You don't have to.
You're suggesting I might. It's remarkable.
I don't know. We'll just find out. We're just going to show up and hang out. And it's raising money for charity, which is good. And speaking of raising money for charity...
Yes, indeed. We have our own charity drive, which Jax has been organising. And again, I am scrolling through looking for the notes.
Just put it in the chat.
It's in the chat, folks. Please help us raise money for Lost and Found Youth, an Atlanta-based non-profit tackling homelessness.
Oops, and I've got a typo.
In the LGBTQIA plus youth. Please donate anything that you can. This is this time of year especially, this is a very important cause. So if you could help out, we would really, really appreciate it.
So that's Saturday. As a result, the RPGG stream goes 11 to 11 Saturday to Sunday. So we're not going to start our Sunday stream until 11 after the opening ceremonies instead of 10. So it'll be 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Sunday.
But that means we'll have like a massive lead-in because we'll have had...
I'm just saying, if RPGG wanted to raid on over to our channel, that would be kind of awesome. But it would probably also be a very discordant change. Who knows? And then next Sunday is Stay Free for Not Brian Blessed, August.
So yeah, this coming Sunday is more of the last campfire. During the last session in which we met a really, really cool turtle. And then next Wednesday is Stave 3, which is the Ghost of Christmas Present, which actually genuinely presents a conundrum, if you will, to anyone narrating this, which is how in the blue hell do you do this and not do it as Brian Blessed? And I'm pretty certain the answer is you don't. So there might be shouting, but it will be joyous shouting.
We'll have to get creative. We'll have to think of how it could be something that is ebullient, but not Brian Blessed.
I have a couple of ideas.
I trust you.
Shouting!
See, but everybody wants to say, Gordon's alive!
I actually found a clip, which I shall put in the show notes for next week, of him standing in a railway tunnel in his home county with a news reporter, and he looks at the guy and goes, "Say Gordon's alive." And the guy does, and is moderately impressive. And he goes, "Gordon's alive!" And it echoes up and down this entire tunnel.
Oh, how amazing. Wow. Oh, be Drexel. Be Drexel Geisman instead of... Oh.
David, you mean Ebenezer.
Yeah.
You, here. Prepare for the milk of human kindness. I reaped it myself.
We will have to give it some thought.
Yes.
Alright?
And as Zalia has just suggested, a very stellar Christmas, which is a fantastic idea that we cannot write. Now is definitely a good time to step away.
Oh my god. Oh, I'm going to very Christmas. I'm writing that one too. I'm not going to do anything with it, but it's too good of an idea.
David, I'm here to teach you the true meaning of Christmas. The true meaning is sales. Sales, David.
The true meaning of sales.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. As ever, this has been an absolute blast.
Have a wonderful time.
Have a wonderful time, and we will see you next time, which, as we just talked about, will be a lot.